Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Now, normally on this channel, I'm not gonna lie, we tend to roast Gen Zers, but in today's video, we're gonna adopt one of their sayings, one of their favorite words. Cap. You know, these Gen Zers, how they respond to dishonest and disingenuous people with the word cap, they say, that's cap. Well, everything the Democrats are saying right now is absolute, undeniable cap. Oh, the meltdown that the establishment left is currently experiencing as Tucker Carlson exposes the left's insurrection narrative. Some of the things these Democrats are saying are just absolutely ridiculous. That's the topic of today's video, starring Karine Jean-Pierre and Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer. We've got some stuff to get into, friends, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so I'm sure you guys are aware of the backstory at this point. Tucker Carlson has been blowing the lid on this whole insurrection narrative. Leftoid journalist hacks aren't exactly happy about it. Here's a question that was posed from a so-called journalist during a White House press meeting.
Last night, Tucker Carlson cherry-picked video surveillance from the January 6th insurrection, severely downplaying the events of that day. He said the mob was orderly and meek and that they were tourists instead of insurrectionists. What's your response to Carlson and to Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who granted him access to that video?
Now, you see the framing, right? That Tucker Carlson cherry-picked footage in order to downplay the, quote, insurrection. This is a journalist, by the way. This is journalism in 2023. Just using the term insurrection alone is utterly dishonest and inaccurate. And the awful hypocrisy of claiming that Tucker Carlson is cherry-picking video footage, but of course the mainstream media and the January 6th committee, what they did was definitely not cherry-picking video evidence. Karine Jean-Pierre, of course, as incoherent as ever, then responds,
anybody who watched that video would strongly disagree. Anybody who watched that video with their own eyes in a real way and saw what happened on that day would disagree with what was just stated. The president has been very clear. January 6th was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Karine Jean-Pierre's initial response, anyone who watched that video could clearly tell that Tucker Carlson was wrong. Really?
They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the Speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol.
People walking around taking selfies. Oh, how extreme and how scary. Domestic terrorists. Lock them up for good. Throw away the key. This is where what I said in the intro applies. That's cap. Absolute friggin' cap. Lies, more lies, and nothing but lies. In fact, what they're trying to tell you is don't believe your very eyes. What you're seeing with your own lying eyes is inaccurate, and actually it was the scariest moment in American history. Karine Jean-Pierre then went on to try to make that claim that it was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Really? Not only is that not accurate, hello, 9/11, Pearl Harbor, just to name a few, but it wasn't even the worst, quote, attack on the Capitol, if you could even classify it as an attack. Taking selfies in the rotunda. Timeline of 1954 shooting events. On March 1st of 1954, a group of armed Puerto Rican nationalists fired on the House floor from public galleries, wounding 5 U.S. representatives. Within a matter of moments, normal House proceedings were thrown into chaos, creating a scene etched into the memories of members, staff, and pages. Explosive device, that's the term that I'm going to use to avoid algorithmic detection from the YouTube algorithm, explodes in Capitol building. A device explodes in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., causing an estimated $300,000 in damage but hurting no one. A group calling itself the Weather Underground claimed credit for the attack, which was done in protest of the ongoing US-supported Laos invasion. The so-called Weathermen were a radical faction of the Students for Democratic Society SDS. The Weathermen advocated violent means to transform American society. The philosophical foundations of the Weathermen were Marxist in nature. They believe that militant struggle was the key to striking out against the state to build a revolutionary consciousness among the young, particularly the white working class. Their primary tools to achieving these ends were arson and explosives. In other words, 1970s Antifa. Or what about Susan Lisa Rosenberg, an American activist who's supposedly connected to Black Lives Matter, who, by the way, Bill Clinton pardoned? Susan Lisa Rosenberg was an American activist, writer, advocate for social justice and prisoners' rights from the late 1970s into the mid-1980s. Rosenberg was active in the far-left terrorist May 19th communist organization M19Co, which according to the contemporaneous FBI report openly advocated to overthrow the US government through armed struggle and the use of violence. M19Co provided support to an offshoot of the Black Liberation Army, including in the armored truck robberies, and later engaged in explosive attacks of government buildings, including the 1983 Capitol explosion or explosive attack. So that's just a couple examples right off the top of the dome, right off the top of my head, all of which pale in comparison to people walking through the Capitol, being led by police officers, and overwhelmingly acting like tourists on a field trip. That's not to dismiss certain acts of vandalism, because of course there were some individuals who may have acted inappropriately, but for the most part, we're talking about maybe breaking a window, kicking a bench over. I mean, these are honestly the worst things that I've seen. Oh, but how could you say something like that? Capitol police officers, evil Trump MAGA villains, took the lives of Capitol police officers. Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden told me that that was the case. Nothing but lies. The only individual whose life was supposedly taken by these evil, deplorable, terrible MAGA supporters was Brian Sicknick. But yep, here we go again. More footage, totally disproving Democrat claims and destroying their narrative. Footage shows Capitol cop Brian Sicknick uninjured on January 6th.
But Brian Sicknick should not be reduced to a prop for the political ambitions of the Democratic Party. He was a human being. The facts of his life matter, including how he died. To this day, media accounts describe Sicknick as someone who was, quote, slain on January 6th. The video we reviewed proves that is a lie. Here is surveillance footage of Sicknick walking in the Capitol after he was supposedly murdered by the mob outside. By all appearances, Sicknick is healthy and vigorous. He's wearing a helmet, so it's hard to imagine he was killed by a head injury. Whatever happened to Brian Sicknick was very obviously not the result of violence he suffered at the entrance to the Capitol. This tape overturns the single most powerful and politically useful lie that Democrats have told us about January 6th. And it was indeed a lie. The January 6th committee knew perfectly well that Brian Sicknick was walking normally through the Capitol.
Democrats spread misinformation about Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick on multiple occasions, yet the medical examiner determined that this particular individual died due to natural causes. But Tucker Carlson supposedly is the one spreading misinformation. No, Tucker Carlson is finally clearing the record, a record that has been totally muddied, tampered with, and twisted, altered by politically motivated, dishonest Democrats. And oh boy, they just can't handle it. Here's Chuck Schumer's meltdown.
These lies continue tonight. Rupert Murdoch, who has admitted they were lies and said he regretted it, has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight now that he's seen how he has perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again and again. Not because their views deserve such opprobrium, but because our democracy depends on it.
Oh, how frightening, how terrible. Democracy is going to end because Tucker Carlson is transparently reporting on the video footage and the facts related to the events of that day. Oh, how spooky. What's really frightening is seeing Senate leaders demanding a media company like Fox News stop reporting on government, police, and other issues. As Twitter commenter Jim Stinson eloquently put it in his response to this video. I don't even know what to say anymore in this video. I feel like I pretty much covered it all. Just a bunch of sociopathic, lying Democrats, essentially throwing a collective hissy fit. They've lost control over this narrative, and frankly, it seems as though they have nothing left in terms of their fear-mongering extremism argument. Who knows what they're gonna pivot to next? Probably back to Vladimir Putin and the whole Ukraine crisis thing. Oh, those extreme Republicans questioning the war in Ukraine. They're a bunch of Putin's stooges. Who knows what the next gaslighting narrative will be? All we know is that the January 6th insurrection one is pretty much done. Well, at least for most people paying attention. I'm sure they'll still target a certain segment of the population with that kind of rhetoric, but the narrative is largely finished. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.